videos on coiling. So for coiling, you're going to need to get some tools, you're going to need to get some hunks of clay, and you're going to need to get a slab of clay. So the tools you're going to want to have is a needle tool, some sculpting tools, right? Rib. This is a black one. I don't use it very often, but you can. The metal one we use a lot. This is always a great tool to have, and this is a good little scratcher. You're going to need a bucket of water, the small kind, a sponge, a banding wheel, and a project board, and obviously some clay. Important parts. To start your coiling, you take your slab of clay. Remember, you're going to coil a pretty big mug in this thing. So you're going to take a slab of clay, and I want you to create the base. One of these little cups is great for creating the base. Put it on a slab of clay. Take your needle tool and just cut around that cup, and you will have yourself a nice base to begin your coiling. Okay? You're going to take your now nice base to begin your coiling, and you're going to put it on a project board. The reason you want to do that is it's easier to move the final piece around. The project board you'll put on a banding wheel so that it can spin around while you're working on it. All right, you're about to do a coil. The way you take a coil is you take a piece of clay. Don't get too worried about the clay being perfect. Any clay will work. And you start rolling it in your hand, squeezing it. Make sure you've wedged it real well before you started doing this. Here's coiling. You're taking your hands one over the other, and you're rolling on the clay. And it gets round. And you keep rolling on the clay. And you keep rolling on the clay. And as you roll, you bring your hands out to the outside. You're spreading. So we're rolling, and we're spreading, and we're rolling, and we're spreading. And as you do this, what you may notice is that part's thicker than this part. So just put your hand right there. And roll and spread, and roll and spread, and roll and spread. I like this a little bit. Okay, got myself a nice long coil now. All right. I am making a mug. This coil is going to get attached to this base. What do I have to do? All right, so we have the base here. We've coiled our coil of clay. And remember, every time you have one piece of clay attached to another, you have some basic things you do. You get the surfaces wet. This coil is going to go around the outside. You're going to get this surface wet of the coil I made. I like this little cheater tool. You just drag it along here and it makes all kinds of scratches all at once. I'm going to put all the scratches across my coil. Now, I take my coil. I'm going to put it on the edge of the base. I'm going to push it down with my fingers, just a little pushing, and I'm going to smooth out the starting point. Now I'm going to bring the coil around, not being too worried about anything because there'll be lots of time to straighten it out. And as it goes over that next place, it just rolls on top of it. And it keeps rolling and keeps rolling until you've run out of coil. At this point, I want to straighten it out. Make sure the walls are being straight. That's when the banding wheel is going to help you. For the next place, another smooth transition. And you squish it down, put it together, and you've done your first coil. And while you're watching, but I'm not talking, I'm going to do a whole bunch more coiling. All right, you've got a coiled shape. It looks pretty good, but we don't want it to look like the coils. So to smooth out the edges, you're going to take this rib, and you're going to just hold your hand inside, and you're going to take the rib and rub it up and down on the outside of the coils. And what that's going to do is smooth out that surface, okay? You're going to do the same thing on the inside. I like to use this wooden stick because it's a little harder to hold, and you're going to just put your hands in there on the outside and hold it. You're going to run this thing around and smooth it. So now your goal is to take this clay that's in the shape of a mug and just make it a lot more mug-like. Okay, so I'm not going to do this perfectly. You're going to do it and spend a little more time, but you've got yourself a mug. It's pretty much the height you want. You've smoothed out a lot. You can find places you don't like. Get your hands in there. Make sure when you're done, you're real happy with how smooth it is. One of the most important parts of your mug is actually the very top. So when you put a coil, it's not going to be real flat. One of the easiest ways to make it flat is just take another project board and give it a little tap. Now all of a sudden the top of my mug is pretty darn flat. Okay? So that's basically the process for making your mug. We're going to stop for a second and then we're going to pull a handle. Okay, so now that you've got your mug made, you need a handle for the mug. Pulling handles is kind of an important way to get a shape that is unique. Get yourself a piece of clay, make sure it's well wedged. Now you're going to take this piece of clay, you'll be doing it on the wedging table, but you're going to throw it down. And this does a couple things. It makes sure that the edges are smooth and stuff like that. When you've compressed it, you've kind of wedged it a little more. You're going to get yourself a hunk of clay, and you're going to take your hands, and you're going to squeeze the clay, and you're going to let it get rounder and a little longer. You're going to leave a couple inches of clay off the top, and then you're going to pound that down. Now, the whole reason we're doing this, we want to be able to hold this top as we pull the handle. Pulling a handle. You've got your slug of clay. You've got it in the shape of a spike. In the handout, I talk about the spike that put the two railroads together. And now I want to make this longer and more even. Hands are wet. And turning. When you think it's about as thick as you'd like your handle to be, you're going to take your thumb and push a dent into the round clay and drag it down all the way off the bottom. Get it wet again, push your thumb in and get it all the way down the bottom. At the beginning we were making it round, and now we're making it flat. You're going to break a piece off that you think is big enough for your handle. You're going to take that piece of clay, you're going to put it onto a project board upside down so that later on we can use this for a handle. And that is handle pulling. So now I have my mug and I want to attach my handle. I'm going to do this twice so you can see it. You take your handle, you lay it on its side, and you say, how much of this handle do I want? So those surfaces that are being attached, and scratch them like I always do. Scratch down here. They're wet already. I'm going to put the handle in place and press it in. And this is a little wetter than normal, but we could do it for the video. And after you've got it in place, you're going to find a tool. You're going to smooth out the areas that aren't quite right. And now you've got a handle on your mug. But before you're done, you have one more thing you have to do, really fast from my perspective. You have to attach something interesting to it. So I'm going to make a butterfly. This is a butterfly. I know you're not sure it looks like a butterfly. I'm going to attach it. Now I have an attached butterfly. And when you weren't looking, I was scratching it and pressing it and compressing it. But now, a beautiful mug with a butterfly. And that's coiling.